So for some reason on my channel, I've never really dug deep into a movie that ever since the day I saw it, I've been incredibly passionate about, and it skyrocketed up my list of favorite movies of all time. I decided, let's give this movie a proper retrospective. I want to tell you about it and tell you why I love it, and why I think it's better than its predecessor. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Nick from the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm coming at you tonight to talk about a movie that absolutely knocked my socks off in 2019. So let me set the stage for you. In October of 2019, I went and saw Joker, and I was like, there's no way this movie could ever be topped this year. This is absolutely my number one movie of the year. And then a week or two later, I go to the theater to see another movie, and guess what? It tops Joker. That movie is Dr. Sleep. Yes, Dr. Sleep was my favorite movie of 2019. I couldn't stop thinking about it. When it got announced on physical media, Mike Flanagan had said there was going to be a 3-hour director's cut that was going to play out more like a book in chapters and whatnot and give more of the backstory from the first act of the movie. Couldn't wait, watched it. Oh yeah, love the 3-hour version. It's amazing. But before I get ahead of myself, let me give you a quick plot synopsis of Dr. Sleep. Basically, this movie picks up years later. Danny Torrance is now an adult, played by the incredible Ewan McGregor. Hello there. And Danny, a lot like his father, has become an alcoholic and kind of a loser and, is tormented by what happened to him as a child. So Danny has made the conscious decision to turn off his shine. He doesn't want to shine anymore. And we get cuts throughout the movie of flashbacks of him and his mom after they left the Overlook and what Danny went through, and when he eventually decided and learned how to lock these ghosts and these memories up and move on from his shine. He doesn't want to shine anymore. Well, unfortunately, there's a young girl named Abra who also shines, and she's probably more powerful than Danny. Well, there is a group called the True Knot, and they want to eat the shine out of all of these gifted children. And her power is so strong, they can sense her, so they start tracking her. And Abra and Danny, while Danny's trying to get his life together, build this relationship and eventually work together to fight off the True Knot. That's pretty much the plot of Dr. Sleep without getting into too much. Yeah, that's Dr. Sleep for you. Now, I've got to get, the elephant in the room. We got to get this out of the way. You're making a sequel to The Shining. The Shining is goated amongst horror fans and just film fans alike. Everybody regards The Shining as one of the greatest movies ever, or definitely one of the greatest horror movies ever. So how do you one-up that? Well, let me first say, this was a book written by Stephen King. So it's not like a director came on and said, I want to make a sequel to this super popular property with no source material there. No, this was a book written by Stephen King. So Mike Flanagan meets with Stephen King and says, I want to adapt this. I want to put my own flair on it, but I want to correct what you didn't like about The Shining. And Stephen King says, go for it. And guess what? Stephen King loves this movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time in 2019, he had said this was his favorite adaptation of one of his books on film. Mike Flanagan stayed very true to the book while also giving an ending that should have been closer to what the ending of The Shining was. A little backstory there is, Stephen King did not like the liberties that Stanley Kubrick took with his property. He didn't like the way it ended especially, and he thought that there wasn't enough depth to the characters and emotion to the, behind everything. Right or wrong, that's how Stephen King felt. So he saw this as an opportunity to get that rectified and have his story continued on in keeping with what he wanted initially. And Mike Flanagan, who better to do it than him? Mike Flanagan has done multiple Stephen King properties up to this point, and he's just really kind of been under the tutelage almost of Stephen King, and they've really become friends, and it really shows because there is a passion behind this movie, and it just works organically. So, first, let me tell you about why I like Dr. Sleep so much. It is already hard to follow up The Shining, as I said. But I feel like this movie tells a beautiful tale in different acts, and every part of this movie serves a purpose. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, guys, tune out now because I'm going to go into spoilers. It's been out for 3 years. You got no excuses, all right? When you've got Danny at the lowest of the lows at the beginning of the movie, you really start to sympathize with this guy because you feel like his past has broken him and his genetics, his DNA are making him this way. He can't really help it. So to see him come out of that and build a better life for himself is so refreshing. But just as that happens, this little girl who also shines, who is great in this movie, I really enjoyed her in this movie and I liked her story, she becomes a target for this group that wants to kill these kids. They're not immortal, but they live a really long time, so long as they can feed off of the shine of the kids that shine. Anyone that shines, really. They don't have to be a kid. They just happen to be kids a lot. And the idea is you catch them, you make them bleed, you make them hurt, and the shine comes out of them. And they collect it, and they feed on it, and they stay young and stay alive for a very long time. Danny strikes up a relationship with Abra unintentionally and talking across the country really to each other with their minds, using their shine. And he is very reluctant. He doesn't want to do this. He's just gotten his life back together. But when he realizes she's in danger, and, honestly, he's in danger too. Eventually down the road, they'll come for him too. He decides, I got to help this girl. Meanwhile, this group, Rose the Hat and the True Knot, they're absolutely vicious. There's a scene in this movie that is incredibly hard to watch where they capture a kid. They call him Baseball Boy, I believe. He is just a kid. They capture him and they kill him, and they brutally, and it shows it. And it's really hard to watch, especially if you're a parent, but it ups the ante so much. It lets you know that this group that you're supposed to fear, you fear them. They are scary. And you know that they don't give a shit who they have to go after or what they have to do once they capture them to get their shine. They will do it. And it is so important in any kind of movie that your antagonist, that there are stakes there, that they are important, that you truly believe that they are as bad as they want us to believe they are. And in this movie, you feel that way. Rebecca Ferguson as Rose the Hat is absolutely amazing. First of all, Rebecca Ferguson is freaking gorgeous. She's a great actress. She plays this so... she's lackadaisical. She's fun. She's, well, hey there, or hi there. I think she says hi there. Either way, it's kind of funny because Ewan McGregor's in this movie. Obi-Wan. You guys saw the bit a few minutes ago. You know what I'm talking about. So it works like perfectly. But the stakes are there. And she plays this character, both sides of this character, brilliantly. Now, the movie it's really a lot of that for the first 2 hours. You're getting Danny's story, his redemptive arc. You're getting Abra's story, getting to know her. You're watching the True Knot absolutely just kill anyone they can to feed their needs, getting the shine any way they can. But once they find out Abra, where she is, and her power, they go for her. And I'm not going to get into the minutia of all of it, but it's super cool how that goes down, and you really see how powerful Abra is. And then this movie does what I was hoping and praying it would do, and I want to set this scene for you perfectly. I watched The Shining the night before Dr. Sleep came out, the night before I went to see it in the theater, and I'm so glad I did, because when you get to the third act of this movie, they recreate the journey up the mountains to the Overlook Hotel. A lot of the same camera shots, same camera work. It's snowy, it's dark, and you just get the Overlook theme blaring throughout that theater. And let me tell you something. It woke something up in me that was just primal. Like I'm sitting here and I'm just like, dear God, I am living for this. And when you get to the Overlook, it is recreated beautifully. Obviously, it's like all different actors playing the ghosts and whatnot, but it's great. It is to a T, every last detail is on point. The desk where the typewriter was, his whiskey glass, all of it. It's perfect. And you get a very, very poignant showdown and final fight. And it's just great. What it symbolizes, what ends up happening, and what ends up happening to Danny is like super emotional, and it just carries a lot of weight. And it's really impactful and it's really effective. And I just, going along the journey the entire time through this movie, I was just absolutely in awe of everything I was seeing. They tell this new story, picking up with him as an adult and these flashbacks of him and his mom in such a compelling way. And although the movie does run a very long time, you're captivated the whole time, even if there isn't a lot going on. And that is a testament to the performances. I mean, Ewan McGregor, he's great in everything he does. He's great in this role as well. As I said, Rebecca Ferguson, she's absolutely fantastic in this role. The little girl that plays Abra, she's great in the role. I mean, and Danny has a friend, an AA friend that he's a well-known actor. I'll put his picture up. I can't remember his name. Sue me. He's great in the role. There's so many great actors and actresses in this movie, and they're telling this new story while also really just being a continuation of a story that we all know and love, and they're doing it in such a compelling way. You just kind of can't take your eyes off of it. So, again, this is a really long-winded way of saying that I love the story. I love the performances. I love the stakes. I love the way this movie ends. I love the message that it sends. I love everything about that third act, especially. It's like some of the greatest filmmaking I've ever seen. Like, it's amazing. But add on top of that, the way that it corrects what Stephen King initially wanted with The Shining and how it was supposed to end and how it works so well in this movie. It doesn't feel like Mike Flanagan is reaching here. It feels very organic. It feels very powerful. And I love the ending of this movie. Now, the Shining stuff. I mean, we've got to talk about the Overlook, the connections to the previous film. Does it work? Does it hold up? It is magnificent. I mean, I don't think there's any other way I can put this. The Overlook looks incredible. The ghosts are incredible. The progression of Danny Torrance. You really believe that this is little Danny. I mean, everything about what they revisit from The Shining just works so freaking well. I cannot stress that enough. So if you're someone that is a huge fan of The Shining and you're like, well, there's no way the sequel can live up to it, I'm telling you right now, the best thing that Dr. Sleep does is it is its own thing for a lot of the movie, and then when it really leans into the nostalgia, it works. It hits it at every freaking point. There is not a moment where it doesn't work. It all works completely. It's just brilliantly done. I mean, I'm rambling because, look, I've been taken to task about this before. I love this movie. I prefer it to The Shining. And people will go, well, you're young. First of all, I'm almost 30. Second, I've been watching The Shining since I was a tot, okay? I have a passion for that movie. Halloween's my favorite movie of all time. Don't tell me that I can't appreciate, old classic horror. It's not that at all. I just think that I love the arcs of these characters. I loved how natural it felt and revisiting this world and how well they did it. And I just felt like the ending and the emotion behind it and the conclusion just is perfect. The way you justify making a sequel, and I should add the caveat that there was a book sequel already made, so there was source material to go off of here. But the way you should ever justify making a sequel is if you feel like there's more story to tell. And Stephen King had the right idea writing a sequel in the first place because there was more story to tell. And there's enough of a new story. It's the majority of this movie to where this thing stands on its own. Even before you get to the third act where it's, a lot of the same beats from The Shining, the first 2 hours of this movie stand completely on its own. And that is a great story in and of itself. I think that Mike Flanagan right now is probably my favorite director working. James Wan is there too. And I got a soft spot for Rob Zombie. I won't lie. But to say that Rob Zombie's on the level of someone like Mike Flanagan would be a flat out lie. I think that Mike Flanagan, he does the supernatural really well, but I think his strongest point is the human drama and addressing trauma and the natural reaction and progression of characters when they're faced with things like that. And in the writing that goes into that to make these things believable and to make them poignant and to make it really just stand out. And I think there's nobody better nowadays than Mike Flanagan at doing that in the horror genre. I really think that when all is said and done, as I said in a video I did last week, we're going to look back on this guy's career and realize that he was one of the greats. And I think that to this point, this is his high point for me. Right after this would be Midnight Mass. But everything that went into this movie is just brilliance. Brilliance. The script, the cinematography, the music, the nostalgia, the performances, the settings, the stakes. It's brilliant. So this was not a very concise retrospective and deconstruction of this movie because there's a lot of specific points I really wanted to hammer on, and hammer on them I did multiple times because it's just that good. And it's very rare nowadays, I think, that you find a movie, especially a sequel to a uber popular product, be as good as Dr. Sleep is. So if you're somebody that was hesitant about watching this movie because you thought it couldn't live up to The Shining, or if you're someone that just never caught it because it did kind of fly under the radar because Joker was killing the box office, so no one, it didn't do as well. I urge you to seek this movie out, to watch this movie, preferably the director's cut, because there is a lot more meat to the bone on it. And I just don't think you can walk away from it with any other take than, wow, what a freaking story. And even if you don't prefer it to The Shining like I do, what a story. And I think to sum this movie up, there's a scene where Danny is in the bar at the Overlook. And he's having a conversation with a man he believes is his dad. And it essentially is, but it's the Overlook playing tricks on him. And what a powerful scene. It says, man takes a drink, drink takes a drink, drink takes the man. And I think that that's one of the biggest themes throughout this entire movie. And it really resonates. That scene is acted beautifully. It's haunting. I mean, God, I'm done. I'm done. I could talk about Dr. Sleep all day. So guys, if you have not checked out Dr. Sleep, check it out. If you checked it out, you weren't a huge fan, you want to go back and rewatch it, please do. I implore you to do so. I don't really have a rating system here, okay? Normally I give you guys something out of 5 stars when I do a retrospective. Dr. Sleep easily gets 5 out of 5 stars. But it's better than that. If I had to say that there are a handful of movies that I could take with me on a desert island, and they'd be the only movies I could ever watch in my life, ever again, Dr. Sleep is one of those 5 movies that I would take on that island. So I'm not going to steal Lee's Trapped on an Island theme, but that's kind of how it feels. You know what I mean? Like, whatever words you want to use for that. It is in its own category. It's in a league of its own. This movie is just that good, and I urge you to watch it if you haven't already. I really want to hear your guys' feedback. Let me know down below what you think of Dr. Sleep, what you think of The Shining, and do you think this movie deserves more love? Let's discuss it all down in the comment section below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble for like 20 minutes about a movie I love. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I am pulling out.